Yesterday, a Muslim terrorist named Mohammed Jallow, a naturalized citizen from Sierra Leone, opened fire at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, killing one person and injuring two more. He would have done far more damage, but the students in the classroom charged him and beat and stomped and stabbed him to death.
There were students that were in that room that subdued him and rendered him no longer alive. I don't know how else to say it, but they basically were able to terminate the threat.
So he was not shot?
He was not shot.
I went to college at Old Dominion University. I did a double major in biology and philosophy before heading off to graduate school. I met Nabil at ODU. I met my wife at ODU. My wife and I had our first son while we were students at ODU. Most Americans remember where they were on 9/11. I was in the parking lot at ODU listening to the radio as the second tower came crashing to the ground. I started writing articles about Islam while I was at ODU. And now we've got jihadis screaming Allahu Akbar and shooting professors at ODU.
I can tell you that we have confirmed reports that prior to him conducting this act of terrorism, he stated Allahu Akbar.
Let's take a closer look at what happened and learn a bit more about the shooter and see if we can figure out what motivated him. Mohammed Jallow didn't wake up recently and decide to be a terrorist. He's been on the FBI's radar for a while.
And he was formerly a subject of an FBI investigation in material supporting terrorism.
In 2017, he was sentenced to 11 years in prison for providing material support to ISIS.
What kind of aid was he giving to ISIL 10 years ago?
He wanted to conduct a terrorist attack similar to that in Fort Hood, Texas.
He wanted to carry out something similar to the Fort Hood massacre. That tells you a lot of what you'd want to know about him. There are different kinds of jihadis. There are jihadis who only want to target soldiers or future soldiers. They target military bases or military events. That's what U.S. Army Major Nidal Hasan did at Fort Hood in 2009. Then there are jihadis who don't care if they're killing soldiers as long as they're killing non-Muslims. But they don't, under any circumstances, want to kill practicing Muslims. These jihadis target concerts or Christmas markets because they don't think any real Muslims will be there. And there are jihadis who don't mind killing Muslims as long as the Muslims are collateral damage. They'll target places like the World Trade Center, knowing that Muslims will be killed in the attack, but they believe it's acceptable. Mohammed Jallow wanted to kill U.S. soldiers or future U.S. soldiers, even though he used to be in the Virginia Army National Guard. The Associated Press reports Jallow, a former Virginia Army National Guard member who authorities said was taking online classes at the university, killed one person and injured two other people in Thursday's shooting. ROTC students subdued and killed him. Jallow was in the National Guard, and he targeted an ROTC class. ROTC stands for Reserve Officers Training Corps. It's a college program for students who intend to become officers in the military. Little is publicly known about Jallow, who was a naturalized citizen from Sierra Leone. But court documents depict him as a troubled man who was radicalized by Anwar al-Awlaki, a well-known American imam who became an al-Qaeda propagandist. The Virginia Army National Guard confirmed he served as a specialist from 2009 until 2015 when he was honorably discharged. Jallow told a government informant he quit the National Guard after hearing lectures from al-Awlaki, according to a 2016 FBI affidavit filed in his criminal case. In a letter to the federal judge that presided over his sentencing, Jallow wrote, I feel deep regret in having been driven by my emotions rather than my intellect and becoming involved with such an evil organization. I reject and deplore terrorism and any groups associated with it, especially ISIL. Good to know he was vehemently opposed to terrorism when he was being sentenced. So, he was in the Virginia Army National Guard for years, from 2009 until 2015. He started listening to the lectures of al-Qaeda terrorist Anwar al-Awlaki, who, by the way, was educated at Colorado State University, San Diego State University, and George Washington University. Strange how these guys can be walking among us for years before they start killing. Jallow soon concluded that as a Muslim, he shouldn't be part of the U.S. military. On the contrary, he should attack the U.S. military. So he left the National Guard and began plotting his attack. Fortunately, he made the classic jihadi blunder back in 2016. He started blabbing his plans to other people. Jallow's October 2016 plea came after a 3-month sting operation in which he, then 26, confessed to an undercover FBI agent that he was thinking about carrying out an attack similar to the 2009 shootings at Fort Hood, which left 13 people dead. Authorities launched the 2016 operation after Jallow made contact with members of the Islamic State group in Africa earlier that year. Jallow later told the informant that the Islamic State group had asked if he wanted to participate in an attack. He tried to donate $500 to the group, but the money actually went to an account controlled by the FBI, according to court documents. Jallow then tried to buy an AR-15 assault rifle from a Virginia gun store, but was turned away because he lacked the proper paperwork. The affidavit says he returned the next day and bought a different assault rifle. Prosecutors said the rifle was rendered inoperable before Jallow left the store, unbeknownst to Jallow. He was arrested the following day. He was arrested. That's when he suddenly realized that terrorism is wrong, and he blamed depression and drugs following a difficult breakup with his girlfriend. Seems like the judge bought it. U.S. District Judge Liam O'Grady, an appointee of former President George W. Bush, sentenced him instead to 11 years in prison, with credit for time served in jail since his July 2016 arrest. The judge also ordered Jallow to participate in a program for substance abuse testing and treatment, mental health treatment, and requested that he be evaluated for the federal prison system's residential drug program. Completing the residential drug abuse program can reduce an inmate's prison sentence by up to a year, according to the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Normally, inmates serving sentences for terrorism-related offenses aren't eligible for the program. In addition, some inmates who stay out of trouble in prison can reduce their sentence by earning up to 54 days of good conduct time credit for each year of their sentence. However, under the 2018 prison reform law, known as the First Step Act, inmates convicted of terrorism-related offenses are not eligible for such credit. Whatever happened, he got released early and decided to go on a killing spree at Old Dominion University. He went looking for the ROTC class and shot the professor.
Tonight, we've confirmed Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw, shown in this photo on the Old Dominion University website, is the man who Mohammed Jallow killed in the shooting rampage. Colonel Shaw was a professor of military science and department chair at the university's ROTC program. The FBI says a group of ROTC students stepped in and killed Jallow. These are the court sketches from 2016, when Jallow was convicted of trying to provide material to support the Islamic State of Iraq. He was formerly in the Army National Guard. He pled guilty, was sentenced to 11 years in prison, but was reportedly released in December of 2024.
This is now being investigated as an act of terrorism. The life of this man, taken, the veteran Army pilot, surviving combat missions in the Middle East during the early 2000s, only to be killed here on U.S. soil. And there could have been other casualties if it were not for those brave students confronting the attacker and ending his life as he tried to end theirs. The FBI identifying the gunman as 36-year-old Mohamed Jalloh, a former Virginia National Guard member. Around 10:45 Thursday morning, investigators say he calmly walked into a classroom on campus, asked if it was the ROTC, and when someone said yes, he shot the instructor several times. A third victim who died, identified late today as U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Shaw, a veteran Army aviator who was a professor of military science at ODU, where he was also an alum.
And he specifically targeted these ROTC students. He actually asked somebody, is this the ROTC class, before going in and opening fire. He first shot the teacher as he broke into the class. Then he fired on the students. And this is really incredible. The students fought back. In fact, the students, are the ones who subdued him. One of those students happened to have a knife, and the FBI said they killed him.
It's awesome that the ROTC students stopped him before he could kill more people, but I see three glaring problems here. One, you can have a Muslim serving in the military or working somewhere else who believes in Islam but doesn't know much about what it teaches. That Muslim can start watching lectures online and decide to go on a killing spree. How do you know which Muslims are going to go on killing sprees? You don't. All you know is that you're not allowed to say it has anything to do with Islam. Two, when a Muslim decides to go on a killing spree but gets caught before he kills anyone, all he has to do in court is say that it wasn't really because of Islam. It was because of a bad breakup or a bad meal or a bad experience at work or drugs or climate change, and the judge will buy it. Why? Because that judge has been told all his life or all her life that Islam is a religion of peace and tolerance. So when a Muslim decides to kill people, it must be for some other reason. If you're a jihadi and you get caught, just tell the judge what he or she wants to hear, and you'll be heading home soon enough. 3. Mohamed Jalloh was arrested before his first killing spree ever started. But this time, he actually killed someone. Why didn't he get stopped early this time? Especially when he had already been convicted of providing material support to ISIS. Why didn't authorities stop him beforehand this time? Because he learned his lesson after his first plot. He had years in prison to think about where he'd gone wrong, namely blabbing his plans to other people. His first arrest, trial, and conviction simply taught him to be more careful next time. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? There are lots of jihadis in prisons, and they've got release dates. And they've learned not to make the same mistakes that got them arrested the first time. Now, another victim of jihad is dead, and Mohamed Jalloh is dead. How do we stop this? I say, stop protecting Islam from criticism and make the criticisms common knowledge so that by the time people like Mohamed Jalloh find out what Islam teaches, they've already got some reasons not to take it too seriously. But my approach is Islamophobic, so we can't do that. Instead, we have to continue praising Islam and pretending it's wonderful, so people like Mohamed Jalloh never have any reason to doubt it. Then they start watching the videos, and people die. The people who die are basically offerings on the altar of our God tolerance, much like the tens of thousands of British girls who were groomed and raped were offerings on that altar. Offering up men and women and children to prove our devotion to some new god. We kind of sound like pagans, don't we?